What's up, Vikings Nation? Hold on to your purple jerseys because we got some absolutely wild developments coming out of Minnesota that are about to shake up everything you thought you knew about this team's plans for the 2025 season. I'm talking about moves that could completely change the trajectory of this franchise, decisions that have fans divided, and some behind-the-scenes drama that's making waves throughout the entire NFC North. Right now, as we speak, there are 5 major stories brewing in the Twin Cities that range from nostalgic reunions to shocking departures, from quarterback controversies to potential blockbuster trades that could happen any moment. Can you imagine if I told you that one of these stories involves a beloved former Viking who's sitting out there as a free agent right now, just waiting for that phone call? What if another story revealed that Kevin O'Connell himself admitted he's completely undecided about a crucial position battle that could make or break this season? And here's the kicker. There's a trade scenario floating around that involves the reigning Super Bowl champions, and it's not what you think. Before we dive deep into each of these bombshells, I need you to do me a favor. If you're as obsessed with Vikings news as I am, smash that like button right now and drop a comment telling me which story you think will have the biggest impact on our season. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for every single detail, because what I'm about to reveal in the next few minutes could change how you view this entire roster construction. Let's start with the reunion that nobody saw coming, but everyone should be talking about. Picture this scene for a moment. It's a crisp August morning in Minnesota, and somewhere in the front office at a Vikings facility, there's a phone sitting on a desk that could ring at any moment with a call that brings back one of the most electrifying players in franchise history. While every Vikings fan on social media is screaming for the team to bring back Adam Thielen after watching Rondale Moore get carted off the field with that devastating season-ending knee injury, there's a different reunion brewing that could be 10 times more impactful for this team's championship aspirations. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about Cordarrelle Patterson. Yes, that Cordarrelle Patterson. The same man who turned kickoff returns into must-see television during his time in purple and gold. The human highlight reel who's been quietly sitting in free agency while teams scramble to find reliable return specialists. But here's what makes this potential reunion absolutely genius. It's not just about nostalgia or filling a hole on special teams. Moore's injury created a massive problem that goes way deeper than just losing a receiver. The Vikings desperately need someone who can handle kickoff and punt return duties without fumbling away crucial possessions. And Patterson isn't just one of the best returners in NFL history. He's available right now. Did you see what happened during that preseason game against New England? Rookie Ty Felton gets his hands on a kickoff and immediately fumbles it away. Thank God the Vikings recovered, but can you imagine if that happens in a playoff game? Meanwhile, Miles Price had that incredible 81-yard return, but he's a 5'9" undrafted rookie who probably won't contribute much to the offense beyond special teams. That's where Patterson becomes the perfect solution, because he's not just a returner. The man has over 2,600 career rushing yards and can line up as both a receiver and a running back. Kevin O'Connell could use him in those creative packages that made the Vikings offense so dangerous last season. Think about it. Patterson knows the system, he knows the culture, and he brings that veteran presence that could stabilize a receiving core that's suddenly looking very thin with Jordan Addison suspended for the first 3 games. This isn't just about fixing a special teams problem. It's about adding a multi-dimensional weapon who could be the difference between a good season and a great one. The question isn't whether the Vikings should call Patterson, it's why they haven't called him already. But that quarterback situation I mentioned, it's about to get very interesting. If you thought the Cordarrelle Patterson situation was intriguing, wait until you hear what Kevin O'Connell just revealed about the most important backup position on the entire roster. In a moment of brutal honesty that probably made General Manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah shift uncomfortably in his chair, O'Connell admitted something that should have every Vikings fan paying close attention to the final preseason game against Tennessee. When asked about who will be the backup quarterback behind J.J. McCarthy, our head coach didn't sugarcoat anything. He looked reporters straight in the eye and said, "I would just say that it's still open, and we're trying to figure out what that room is going to look like for the season." Let that sink in for a moment. We're less than a month away from the regular season opener, and the coaching staff genuinely doesn't know who they trust to step in if something happens to their rookie starting quarterback. This isn't some manufactured competition for the cameras. This is real uncertainty about three completely different quarterbacks with three completely different skill sets. Sam Howell came into this competition as the heavy favorite, and for good reason. The guy started all 17 games for Washington in 2023 and looked solid in that preseason opener against Houston, going 11-13 for 105 yards. But here's the problem that's keeping O'Connell up at night. Howell's decision-making has been questionable throughout his career, and his inconsistency is exactly what you don't want from a backup when your starter is a first-year player learning the system. Then there's Brett Rypien, who's been in Minnesota the longest and has 6 years of NFL experience, but only 4 career starts to show for it. The coaches know what they're getting with Rypien, which is both reassuring and concerning depending on how you look at it. But the wild card in this entire competition is undrafted rookie Max Brosmer-Lody, who's become an absolute fan favorite despite having 0 professional experience. The kid has shown an ability to read defenses and make plays that have impressed coaches. But can you really trust a rookie backup behind a rookie starter? O'Connell's dilemma is fascinating because he ideally wants a veteran presence behind McCarthy, but neither Howell nor Rypien might be his best option. The fact that he replaced Howell with Rypien during second-team work tells you everything about where this competition stands. It's wide open, it's unpredictable, and it could come down to who performs best in that final preseason game. But speaking of unexpected developments, there's a roster move that nobody saw coming. Sometimes football breaks your heart in ways that have nothing to do with wins and losses, and what happened to Corell. This week is one of those gut-wrenching reminders of how quickly dreams can shatter in this league. Picture a kid from Cincinnati who grew up dreaming of playing in the NFL, who turned down scholarship offers from Alabama, Clemson, Michigan, Ohio State, and over 25 other programs to play center at Notre Dame. Imagine him grinding through 5 seasons with the Fighting Irish, becoming a team captain, anchoring an offensive line that became a Joe Moore Award semi-finalist, then transferring to NC State for one final shot at improving his draft stock. After going undrafted in April, Corell signed with the Vikings as a free agent and was having the kind of training camp that makes coaches take notice. Reports from Egan suggested he was threatening to make the roster, showing the kind of technique and football IQ that made him a standout at Notre Dame. For a brief moment, it looked like this determined young man was going to achieve his lifelong dream of playing professional football. Then last Saturday happened. In what should have been just another training camp practice, Corell suffered a fractured ankle that ended not just his season, but potentially his entire NFL aspirations. The Vikings had no choice but to cut him earlier this week, though they did reach an injury settlement that provides some financial cushion during his recovery. The heartbreak in Corell's social media post tells the entire story. Sometimes things happen that I don't understand. One minute I'm living out my dream in an NFL stadium, the next I'm having season-ending surgery. I will be back stronger than ever. God's plan is greater. Can you imagine the emotional whiplash of going from potentially making an NFL roster to facing season-ending surgery in the span of minutes? This is the harsh reality of professional football that fans don't always see. Behind every roster cut, there's a human being whose dreams are being altered or delayed, and Corell's situation reminds us that injuries don't discriminate between superstars and undrafted free agents. The Vikings lose a promising young lineman who could have provided depth and developed into a contributor. But more importantly, a young man who worked his entire life for this opportunity faces an uncertain future. Ankle injuries are no joke when you're carrying 300 plus pounds, and the recovery process will test every ounce of determination that got him to this point. While Corell focuses on healing and potentially getting another shot somewhere down the road, the Vikings must continue building their roster, which brings us to a trade scenario that could solve multiple problems at once. Now let's talk about a trade scenario that's so logical, so perfectly timed, and so mutually beneficial that you have to wonder why General Manager Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah hasn't already picked up the phone to call Brett Veach in Kansas City. With Rondale Moore done for the season and Jordan Addison suspended for the first 3 games, The Vikings are staring at a wide receiver depth chart that looks like a Madden franchise mode roster after you've been playing for 10 years. Justin Jefferson is obviously elite, but after him, J.J. McCarthy will be throwing to guys like Jalen Naylor, Lucky Jackson, and Ty Felton when defenses inevitably bracket the best receiver in football. That's not a recipe for success. That's a recipe for disaster. Enter Skyy Moore, the 24-year-old former Western Michigan standout who happens to be a two-time Super Bowl champion but finds himself buried on Kansas City's depth chart behind Travis Kelce, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, and Hollywood Brown. The Chiefs are so loaded at receiver that Moore is likely headed for the practice squad, which means the Vikings could probably acquire him for a minimal draft asset, maybe a late-round pick that could turn into something meaningful for Kansas City's future. Here's what makes this trade so intriguing. Moore's numbers don't look impressive on paper. 3 seasons, never more than 22 receptions or 250 yards, only 1 touchdown, and 0 catches last year. But context matters in the NFL. And Moore's lack of production has more to do with Kansas City's embarrassment of riches than his ability to play football. Patrick Mahomes had so many weapons that Moore never got a real opportunity to showcase his skills. In Minnesota, Moore would immediately slot in as a number 2 or 3 receiver until Addison returns, and he'd be catching passes from a quarterback who needs to establish chemistry with reliable targets. The risk-reward calculation here is fascinating because both McCarthy and Moore are unproven commodities in different ways, but sometimes that's exactly what creates magic in the NFL. Moore knows what it takes to win championships. He's been coached by Andy Reid and developed in one of the league's most sophisticated offensive systems. And he's still young enough to have his best years ahead of him. For the Vikings, this trade would provide immediate depth, veteran leadership from a player who's been in big moments, and a low-cost solution to a potentially season-derailing problem. For the Chiefs, they get some draft capital for a player who wasn't going to make their roster anyway. It's the kind of win-win scenario that happens when timing aligns perfectly with need and opportunity. The Vikings can't afford to head into the season hoping their backup receivers will magically develop into reliable targets for a rookie quarterback. They need proven players who can contribute immediately, and Moore fits that description perfectly. But if you think that trade scenario is wild, wait until you hear some of the more bizarre rumors floating around the internet. Sometimes the internet produces rumors so outlandish, so completely disconnected from reality, that you have to wonder if people are just throwing darts at a board covered with NFL team logos and player names. This week's collection of no-paydy nopes, as one Vikings website cleverly calls them, gives us a perfect glimpse into the wild speculation that happens when the preseason gets people's imaginations running overtime. First up, we have a writer suggesting that the Vikings should trade with the Chicago Bears for quarterback Tyson Bagent. Let me repeat that. The Vikings trading with their NFC North rivals for a quarterback who's made 4 career starts and spent most of last season holding a clipboard. The logic supposedly centers around Sam Howell's inconsistency and the need for veteran depth behind J.J. McCarthy, but anyone who understands divisional politics knows that the Vikings and Bears almost never make trades with each other. It's like suggesting the Packers and Lions should swap starting linebackers. Theoretically possible, but practically absurd. Then there's the tragic tale of Blade Tristan Jackson, the former Vikings receiver who briefly appeared on fans' wish list as a potential Rondale Moore replacement until he landed on injured reserve with the Cardinals after suffering a thumb injury. Jackson went from being a speculative solution to being unavailable in the span of about 48 hours, which perfectly captures the unpredictable nature of NFL roster construction. But the most laughable prediction comes from USA Today's Nate Davis, who apparently looked at the Green Bay Packers roster and decided they're destined for Super Bowl 60. His reasoning involves Jordan Love staying healthy, rookie Matthew Golden making an immediate impact, and the team benefiting from continuity while their division rivals deal with change. Davis even has the Packers losing to Baltimore in the championship game, which suggests he's been spending too much time in the Wisconsin cheese caves. About the Vikings, Davis offered the typical cautionary tale about adapting to J.J. McCarthy weathering Jordan Addison's suspension and facing a brutal stretch of games after their Week 6 bye. His prediction that replicating last season's 14-3 record seems like a long shot feels more realistic than anything involving Green Bay reaching February football. These bizarre rumors and wild predictions serve as perfect reminders that the real NFL is stranger than fiction, but also more logical than the speculation that surrounds it. While people debate impossible trades and outrageous Super Bowl picks, the Vikings are focused on solving real problems with practical solutions, like potentially bringing back Cordarrelle Patterson, figuring out their quarterback depth, and maybe making a smart trade for someone like Skyy Moore. That's the difference between fantasy football thinking and actual football operations. So here's my challenge for you, Vikings Nation. Instead of chasing impossible dreams or believing wild predictions, let's focus on what's actually happening with our team. Which of these 5 stories do you think will have the biggest impact on our season? Are you team Cordarrelle Patterson or team move on? Do you trust Kevin O'Connell to figure out the backup quarterback situation? Should Queasy pull the trigger on a trade for Skyy Moore before someone else beats us to it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Smash that like button if you want more breaking Vikings news like this. And make sure you're subscribed because I guarantee you there are more surprises coming before the season starts. The next few weeks are going to be absolutely crucial for this franchise, and you won't want to miss a single development. Until next time, Skol Vikings!